Sziasztok, Jadó vagyok. Közép-Európa első világra szóló podcast csatornáját hallgatjátok Magyarországról. Ez a Budapest.fm.
Hi, my name is Ray, and you're listening to the #1 podcast station in Central Europe, Budapest.fm, podcasting to the world from Hungary.
Welcome to the Rated PG podcast, hosted by Peter Grunberg.
Good morning. I'm delighted to have a guest who I've hauled in from the street, Jacelyn Parry. Actually, it's not quite true. I met her at Brody House, and she very gamely said she's up for a conversation, all sorts of things we're going to sort of dive into, and we'll hear her story. So, Jacelyn Parry, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here in Budapest, and so happy that I got to meet you at Brody House. Best place in Budapest. If you ever come to Budapest, you have to stay in Brody House.
That was
it's
a totally...
a place with soul. And it's true, it's the
That's
truth.
very sweet.
It's the truth.
You may make me blush now before we even start talking.
It's the truth, because it's a beautiful building, and there's so much character in the place. So you're not in a boring, maybe, soulless type of hotel, business hotel like maybe Marriott, which is very nice on its own, but it's the kind of place where you just go in and you go out. But I think, Brody House is a place where you make friends, and, you can have a jam session. And
You're giving away all the secrets now.
Oh, right,
so,
yeah.
That's very kind of you to say those nice words. I can't take credit for that. There's my partner as well, William, who you met. That's our sort
pet
of
project.
Affaire de coeur. Yeah, pet project.
Yeah,
it's never
beautiful.
finished. And it keeps evolving.
Keeps
But we're not here to talk about Brody House. We're here to talk about Budapest and you.
And me.
Because
Yes.
when we met and you suddenly dived in from playing the piano, doing a little jam session on the drums, I was quite impressed with your versatility, because you're here shooting in Budapest.
That's
and
right.
shooting a
There's
show.
an
Are you allowed to
actress.
talk about that? We can announce that.
I did sign an NDA,
Okay.
so technically I'm not supposed to, but I guess I can say a few things without giving too much away. So not naming.
You're the judge of that, but I don't want to lead you into trouble, of course. But
I'm shooting here with an American production, Amazon. So I think it's coming out next year, the
Okay.
4th season. And it's one of the top 5 shows on Amazon at the moment. And it's
Cool. So
nice.
this is your first. Is this your first biggie, if you like, of
I
this?
think
Is kind
so,
of break.
yes,
Is it a
definitely.
breakthrough role? Could you
That-
describe it like that for you?
For me, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I really like her character, and it's very challenging as well. Some of the scenes that I have to do, but just it's so great being able to work on this set, because there's wonderful, amazing people, very talented, very supportive, and at the same time it's very well written, and so it's nice to be able to be part of that type of environment. Yeah.
And this is your first time here, isn't it?
In Budapest, yeah. It's my
Because
first
as you
time.
probably know, and it's interesting to hear what, the praise that you're levying on the players here. I've heard that a lot, actually. That, I mean, as no doubt you know, but Budapest is actually a very significant filming destination now.
It is. It
I
is definitely.
think it's probably the largest in the EU, or certainly the second, certainly in the top 2 or 3.
Prague, along with Prague.
Yeah,
and
exactly. So
other
I don't have
places.
stats to hand, but it's very significant. A lot of big productions like yours.
And I
coming
think in
through.
Sofia, in Bulgaria as well, is another
Okay.
place where people go
Right.
and film.
But the people seem to be, the skills are here, the knowledge is here.
Definitely. They all
Yeah.
speak English, and they're very professional, and they definitely know how to manage a set. I think managing a set of this type of this type of film that we're shooting, and there's a lot of people involved. So, I get the call sheets every morning, and it's
So how many people are on your
200 people. I
Really?
don't know. It
Okay.
seems like so many people are involved, and they actually they print it on these tiny A3 sheets, and so you can't really read it. You need a magnifying glass
Right.
to zoom in just to see who's who, and and so there's a really large troupe involved, and everything's very well organized.
Great.
Very well organized.
So if you were given the opportunity to return to Budapest, you would welcome that, given your experience.
Yes, please, definitely.
Good. Well, we certainly hope you do return.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey into the craft? Because it was quite a, if you don't mind disclosing,
Yeah.
you can redact it or you disclose what you wish to disclose.
Right.
But your journey into the craft has been non-linear, shall we say?
Very non-linear, unconventional. Yes.
Which is in itself always makes for. So if you're willing to disclose that, then maybe you can share that. Because I thought that was very charming.
Yes. Well, I'm quite embarrassed sometimes telling the story, because I know that a lot of actors they do it the conventional way, and they train and they spend a lot of time, going to school to study, to learn it properly, and so I don't want to disrespect their craft and the effort that they've put in, and I suppose it just happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just one of those people that learnt the craft through working basically on set. So, and I suppose the fact that I got my first opportunity, it led on to other possibilities in Italy, and so. Which
is where you live currently?
In Rome. I'm based in Rome, and so I tend to work, in Italy and in Europe. And so how did I start? Well, actually, just to put it in a nutshell, I suppose, I don't want to bore everyone. I came to Italy for a holiday. I was on my gap year, and I was doing an internship in New York, so I was on holiday, and I ended up in Rome for a couple of days, and while I was there, I was stopped on the street by a film director who was, he saw me walking on the street, and he said, he was talking on the phone, frantically on the phone, in Italian.
I was going to say,
he has ruly hair, curly, and a bit, portly and young, dressed in a skater style. And so when he said that, he stopped. I was with a friend that I met, and he said to him, it's something in Italian, and I didn't understand what was going on, obviously. My friend turned to me, and he said, he was a bit surprised, astonished, and he just said to me, he wants you to cast, he wants to cast you for his film.
Wow.
I thought...
You were suspicious at this point,
exactly,
perhaps.
I was a little bit, I was amused, and I thought, well, what type of film? Because I think you've got the wrong person. I don't act, I don't speak Italian, and I think from what I understood, they had difficulty finding an Asian actress, so they had beautiful models, but they couldn't act apparently, or they didn't have what they were looking for to do this lead role. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, maybe when he was talking on the phone, they were talking about this maybe, and so I guess desperate measures led to desperate situation led to desperate measures, but he saw me and he just decided to try, I suppose. And he was very insistent, I just took it all as a joke, I said, okay, to my friend, all right, don't give him my number, you're my manager, and let's just see where this goes. And so he has his office, because we were in an area where all the production houses were in Piazza Mazzini in Rome. Okay. And we just had our coffee, and so we went to his office, and it's he had Quentin Tarantino posters up on the wall. It's in the basement. It's very funky, the whole thing. And I thought, okay, well, in my mind I was wondering, what kind of film is this?
Sure. And the signs of legitimacy were there, at least, when you first walked in.
I suppose so. And I was just going along with it. I thought, it's funny. It's like, how often does this happen? And so I was just laughing, really. And so we just discussed this, and I just, oh yes, and I just took it with a grain of salt. I said, I don't speak Italian. He said, don't worry, we dub everyone, so you don't need to, we'll translate the script for you. I was like, really? Wow, okay, sure, of course. And I did take it very seriously. And so they kept calling over the next few days, insisting that I try, and so I said to myself, listen, why not? I've got nothing to lose. Nobody knows me here. None of my friends or my family will ever find out about this, right? Because I'm here in Italy, and it's a kung fu kind of cop film, set in Italy. it sounds like fun. Why not, right? I mean, what do I have to lose? I'll just do the casting, and if they like me, they like me. If they don't, then
Exactly.
I just move on.
And how was the end product? Were you satisfied? Did you watch it?
I actually don't like watching myself.
That's why I asked. I assume that I know a lot of actors feel that way. So
I'm one of those actors that when I do something, I just do it, and then I move on. I find it very funny watching myself. I guess I'm embarrassed or shy seeing myself.
Thousands, if not millions, will be doing that. So.
Yes, yeah.
But where does that come from? Because that's not the first time I've heard that from friends who are in the business, and yeah, they just put it in a box and I can't watch done.
Myself. Yeah, I get very shy and embarrassed, so I tend to I don't know really. I suppose it's just my character. I'm naturally very shy. Used to be, but after living in Italy, you train to
right.
come out of your shell a bit
Indeed.
more, and so
Indeed.
I've definitely learnt that. But I still do retain that shyness, I suppose. And so if I do see myself, and I do, maybe I'm I guess being an artist, and artists are always have a tendency to be very self-critical, I suppose, critical of their craft, because they're always aiming to improve, perhaps, to.
So what about rushes? So, for example, when you're in the process of making the film or the show, would you then look at the rushes? I mean, I guess you have to with the director, or get some feedback with a view to then.
I tend to trust the director.
Okay.
I look to the director and I talk to the director and ask if they're happy. What do they think? Do I need to pull back? I ask them, which point of view they're taking from, and so I tend to discuss it more with the director and try
Right.
to trust his perspective and his point of view.
Okay. In terms of performance, another bit which as I mentioned when we first started talking, but you're a very accomplished musician.
Well, accomplished, I don't know about that,
Oh,
but
well,
thank you very much.
It certainly
That's very
seems that
kind
way.
of you.
But then maybe in parallel, tell us how your musical journey evolved, because there's all these creative facets, and clearly acting was the thing that brought you to Budapest. But I understand that music's quite an important part, certainly of your soul, and your creative journey is, from a child. Maybe just tell us. I think I like the story you told me about how you started to learn the piano, for example.
Right,
That's quite.
yeah.
That's
I was in Singapore and I went to Yamaha Music School. So we had to learn the organ. So my parents bought me the organ, and it's very fun playing the organ. You've got all the colorful knobs, and so it's like a spaceship. I always called it my spaceship, and me and my brother, we played games on that. But my neighbor had a piano
right.
across, and it's similar, obviously, because it's got the keyboard, but very different in terms of the sound. So I think what attracted me most was the difference in the sound. It's not electronic, so it's not electroacoustic, but acoustic. So it's you hear the vibrations of the sound and the warmth and the color of the tones, and I think that's what really attracted me to the piano. And I used to pop over there just to tinker around.
So were you self-taught, or did you have?
I was self-taught.
Wow.
Yeah. I just by ear, really.
That's impressive. Okay. So you
There's a lot of limitations, I think, being self-taught. But yeah,
what are when you say the limitations? What the limitations are there?
Well,
Because
I'm not a very good sight reader, for example. I learnt later on
Right.
When I went to the conservatorium in Brisbane in Australia. So I learnt how to sight read a little bit, but I'm not one of those musicians that I can just very fluently just read and play the whole
Right.
thing. I need time to study it and and understand what I'm reading. So
but jams therefore play to your skills, right? I guess
Yeah.
that's the being able to riff with
just
people
to riff,
play.
yes, yeah. And I think that helps with acting as well somehow, because being able to doing improv, it's very similar in many ways, because you have to be spontaneous and come up with creative solutions.
So do you prefer to improvise, going back to acting now, but with the musical experience, shall we say, do you prefer to improvise as opposed to reading long scripts and having to memorize big passages? Where do you think you're most comfortable? Where's your skill? Where's your sweet spot in terms of performance?
Well, I definitely prefer to have a script because it's important to have that structure to be able to work on the character, I think, and to build on it. And once you have that down, then you can improvise. You can try and improvise. Like I was mentioning earlier that I had the great, the privilege of working with Julian Sands on a young female director, Italian female director who's finished shooting and a film called Body Odyssey. And I had the privilege of being able to improv with him, and we improvised a large part of the scene that went on for quite long. And he was very nice, and he said to me, "You're very good at improv." So coming from Julian Sands,
It's high praise, isn't it?
I was really but so I don't know whether he was just being nice, but that really made my day, I suppose. I thought
That's totally legit. So I have a theory. I think a lot of people would sort of maybe identify with that. Is that having some limits to creativity begets further creativity. And I think you can identify that from when you're a child. You sort of, I see it with my own children. Say, well, just tell something or do something or tell a story, and they just freeze.
Right, yeah.
Whereas if you give them, well, tell a story about your favourite animal, boom, then off they go. So
start.
maybe the same logic could apply here, that with your character and script that set the boundaries, and then it's easy to be creative within those
boundaries,
those
definitely,
tracks, if you
because
like.
you need to have an understanding of what the character is. So I mean, the director will come along, and obviously she explained to us, so your character, she's such and such and such, and your character is like that. And so I want you to play on this dynamic and bring this out. So I was he is a domineering male masochistic character in this role that he was playing, and so I see that, and I'm protective of the female lead, and so apparently I was the director wanted me to control the situation, to dominate, to not allow him to dominate. So there was this power play that was happening between the two of us. And so it's funny because we're not very nice to each other when we're improving, but when the director says cut, everything's all hunky-dory. We're very friendly with each other.
Yeah.
So it's
good, a wonderful experience. We can see this work now? Is it already?
No, it's not out yet.
When's it coming out?
I'm not sure actually. I guess they're in post-production right now. So I hope she makes it to some film festival. Right. It's an art house film.
Okay.
Very interesting. Yeah, that talks about the dichotomy of body image and power issues, of gender politics, and a lot of these
very relevant
juxtapositions
to many issues that we see today.
Yeah,
of course.
exactly.
Right.
Regarding female, male, and a lot of gender politics definitely involved there, and that makes you question, I think, what it means to be female, to be a woman. Yeah. So.
And how's your perspective? You mentioned that you, for your Italian serendipitous opportunity, and you were cast because you're an Asian lady, but you've got your history is interesting. So you've been brought up in Singapore, and you've got some Welsh elements, and there's some Irish, and there's Australian. There's a sort of a interesting melange rather of pieces. So where are you from? Firstly, what's your first answer? I guess, and you live in Italy, of course.
Australian,
right?
I have Australian passport. My dad's Australian and my mom's Malaysian Chinese, so they met in Singapore, and that's where I grew up. So my mom's second generation Malaysian Chinese. So there's a huge migration. People in Southeast Asia, the Chinese people who were originally from China migrated over to Southeast Asia. So back in the early 20th century, there were a few different waves of migration, and my great-grandfather came, I think in early 20th century. That's when he came over.
Right.
Obviously, they were escaping a lot of the instability that was happening typing revolution and things like that. So people were leaving in droves to Southeast Asia to find a better life. A lot, I mean, like what's happening nowadays.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, how you relate to that, because
I feel for them because I can understand. I mean, it's so far removed from my upbringing because I've never known that, and I've had quite a relatively very peaceful upbringing growing up in Singapore and whatnot. But knowing my own history and where my parents came from, even on my father's side. He's of Welsh, Irish, and German origins, and I know that the German side, they came from Zwickau, and they were young. My great-grandfather, I suppose, he was a young soldier, and they had the Prussian War that was happening, 100-year Prussian War, and I suppose they just wanted peace. Probably they didn't. He was tired of being in that type of environment. He had a young family, and so they chose the country that's furthest away. And I suppose in that period, people didn't really own their own land, right? Mm-hmm. So when they were given the opportunity, so in America, to go to America and go to Australia, I think a lot of people from Europe they jumped at the occasion, I suppose, to do that. And same thing with my Irish and Welsh side. From Anglesey.
So can you do the Welsh accent?
No,
I tested you earlier.
Unfortunately,
no,
I can't.
I bet you can.
I did the English accent, I think, quite well, but no, I can't do the Welsh.
No, that's tricky.
Yeah,
I can. But
you can teach me.
No,
you're quite brilliant in doing all the different
offline.
accents. Yeah. Have you heard the Welsh accent? How do you do the Welsh accent?
Really? You're putting me on the spot now.
Oh, yeah. Right.
We need to do the vocal chords. Let's do that, shall we? Let's do the vocal warm up.
All right. Okay. Warm ups. So before we started the program, we tried to do a bit of warm up.
I feel still I haven't warmed up properly.
Yes.
So give us 1 minute of turbo vocal warm up.
Well, we can start with finding the chesty tone. So just very soft vibration, and the vibration just relaxes the area here.
So like purring, basically.
Kind of like a low, So you start off, and you can chew on the sound, and just repeating that for a few minutes will just relax and bring out the deeper tones in your voice. Okay. And so it's a good.
So now I'm ready to do a Welsh accent. There you go.
There you go.
I sprung that on you. I think I'll probably leave it at that. Actually, I'll retire on a high. But yeah. Well,
when he's very, very good. When he's done quite a few accents. Before we went on air, from Liverpool to Scotland.
Yeah, they weren't great.
The Irish accent's excellent.
Well, I don't know if I really should be doing that. But, I think if you having gone to an English school in London, of course, that's a game, and there's so many. Because it was such a cosmopolitan, West London's children with every possible accent. So it's quite inspiring, to sort of mimicry is what children do, of course. But back to you and your Singaporean roots, exactly. So. Would you say Singapore was where you grew up? Really, that's.
I was born in Malaysia. But I grew up in Singapore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. My childhood years were all in Singapore, and I have very fond memories of the place.
And how often do you go back now?
After the pandemic, I haven't been back for a couple of years now. Okay. But I try to go back once a year if I can. To pass through on the way to Australia, so I always do the stopover in Singapore,
right,
and then head on to Australia. Yeah. You've been to Singapore yourself?
I have.
Yes. It's very lovely. It's tropical, very hot.
I think, fact check, it's one of only 2 cities that actually have a tropical, rainforest or tropical forest rather, in an urban environment. I think it's Singapore and Sao Paulo, if I'm not mistaken.
That I don't know. I mean, they do definitely have a lot of beautiful trees there, and rain, little pockets of rainforests. which I haven't ventured into because being an urban girl in Singapore when I was young, and my mother
Snakes,
absolutely would never
bugs.
go, exactly.
Right, okay.
Would never take us into a rainforest in Singapore. In Malaysia, yes, I mean, it's swaths and swaths of amazing rainforests there. So I've been to Taman Negara and did the biology field trip in school. We had to go through the rainforests and lug through swamps with leeches, sticking onto your legs.
And
we had to do that.
Grabbed by a leech?
Yes, yeah, we
Or suckered?
all of us, exactly,
Yeah.
It's part of the research trip, biology field trip that we had to do. So it's a lot of
And did
fun.
you have to get off like Indiana Jones with a little cigarette lighter and burn it off? Is that how you get a leach off?
No, actually, I think I pulled it
Just pulled
off.
it?
Yeah, I pulled it off.
Doesn't it leave as little sort of probes in
it's
your skin
horrible,
or something?
Yeah, quite, and all of us, we all had it because we had to trudge through this swamp thing,
Yeah.
and in order to get to, I guess, the mangrove, we had to find this tree, or in order to look at something. I don't really remember the details, but I just remember these leeches that were quite.
They would impress you on your memory
Yes,
as a
that's
child, wouldn't they?
right,
So,
yeah.
so and how has Singapore changed? I mean, I've only been there twice, in fact, and that was lovely, but it was very, it's very developed,
It
and
is, yes.
it was clearly. I mean, this was 20 years ago, so it was having its boom actually at that time, I guess. And how has Singapore changed from someone who grew up there in a peaceful way? It seems quite hustly-bustly,
It is.
at least from my short experience. But
Well, it depends on where you go to. I think Singapore is very it offers both ends of the spectrum. So yes, it is a very bustling, city. It's thriving. It's a cosmopolitan city, but at the same time, it's also a family-oriented city. I think it's a great place. It's very secure. It offers exceptional, education, great infrastructure. Communications. People speak English there, and it's a gateway between Asia and Europe, the English speaking world, and so it's a great place to do business. Corruption levels are low, and so it's very conducive to all that. So it's
what
a
about
very
the creative scene? So you as an artist, both musical and film/theatrical, but.
It's small. It's small.
Right.
I think from what I understood, I think it's perhaps not as flourishing. I suppose it's not a flourishing, thriving arts scene. Not like how if you went over to Europe or to America, places like this, it's a lot more. Bustling, it's thriving. It's a thriving scene. Whereas in Singapore, I think it's a lot smaller. We do have excellent directors. We're producing excellent film directors, but in very small numbers. Even musicians as well, I do believe. But a lot of them, they don't live in Singapore. Perhaps maybe there are a few pop singers that sing in Mandarin. They have broken through in China or in Taiwan, but English-speaking ones, I think maybe they have to live in the UK or overseas in order to be.
So I have to confess, I can't think of a Singaporean film director name, actually. Can you?
I can't remember his name exactly, but I know that we went to the same school, United World College, and I have to get back to you on that one. But he went to Cannes Film Festival, and I've watched his film, and I remember the film. The title I can't remember too. I'm one of those. Yes, I'm one of those people that I remember. I'm visually. I can make visual imprints, and I have a very good visual memory. But when it comes to names, I don't tend to focus so much on the names so much as as part of the memory.
It's the experience of the artist experience.
Exactly, just watching, and he shot this great film with a Tamil character with a little child, set in I guess in Little India. And it's just very fascinating the way he's a visionary director. Is it Edmund?
I'm going to resist the
Yeah,
temptation to go
exactly.
onto my phone because
I know exactly.
Yeah, it's,
I've got it on my phone actually. I have a little
Well,
Instagram page.
it'll pop up in a moment. But Southeast Asia, I mean, there is some growing film activity, and there's one fellow I met recently, Dustin Nguyen. He's got a production company in Vietnam, and he was saying that he was having quite a lot of work the last couple of years, and he's actually built. I mean, I think there's a production facility, so it's not just a local service for international.
So it's not just for commercials in
No,
the
that he
film
I mean,
industry.
they do that, of course, but he'd made a couple of, I mean, obviously martial arts films.
but
I think is
in local, so in Vietnamese, or more
and,
for the international market.
for both actually.
For both.
And so there was one that he showed me some clips from it. And it was really sharp, really. I mean, he's an amazing martial artist. So
I can imagine.
and I was deeply impressed. A bit of a man crush on that. But I follow him on Instagram and showing my children, of course. But so he was suggesting that the Vietnam was becoming increasingly popular
As a destination, as a go-to destination.
Yeah.
It's wonderful and good to know. I wasn't aware.
Yeah, so
I know that in Singapore, I heard through the grapevine that they're trying to expand as well into the Asian region and to produce more content that for the international audience.
So what are you watching right now? So, where's your creative inspiration come from? I mean, from in terms of
Right
reading
now?
material, you meditate as well, you were saying, and listen to podcasts. Maybe give us a little overview of your creative.
Wow.
What feeds your creativity at the moment? So what book are you reading right now?
Well, right now I'm watching a documentary. Well, in these days in Budapest, so at night after I finish work, it's called Immigrant Nation, I think, on Netflix.
Okay.
It's a 5 or 6 part episode, basically talking about America and the immigration situation with what's happening at the border, and it's quite sad and quite heartbreaking. But
So
very
this is
well
a contemporary situation being sort of
I think
reflected
it
on.
was shot probably a couple of years ago. They had a lot of material that documented that thing where they separated the children at the border,
Yeah,
and
brutal, isn't it?
because the political situation changed, and so they had this body called ICE, that basically made the decisions. They were given the power to basically make difficult decisions, and I think they did that intentionally to discourage people from making the crossover, because a lot of them do die during the passage from Mexico over to the States, because it's very hot and dry. It's a desert area where there's no water or food, and I mean, a lot of these people, they run away, from sheer desperation. And even the ones that make it across, they live illegally, but they manage to work. And some of them they're not criminals, they work and they're good people. They have families, and ever since they instilled this new policy, I suppose, they've been deported. So if the ICE comes in and they find you, at their discretion, they can decide to remove you at their own discretion. But anyway, this documentary is very well done, because they show both sides of the picture. So you have people from ICE, from the opposite spectrum, talking about why they're doing this and their motivations, and then you have the other side of the spectrum, which are the victims as well, and how they feel. So it's good, because you're not just in confirmation bias wanting to believe what you want to believe, but you're hearing the other.
Well, confirmation bias is something we talked about earlier, and how
yeah.
it's hard to avoid it, and I'm sure we're all guilty to some degree of that, and it's probably a byproduct of actually having not that much time. We're so bombarded with things all the time, and I was reflecting earlier with you this morning, thinking, actually, the amount of media that I consume has become smaller. And once upon a time, I used to get several newspapers when you actually got print newspapers. So this is that's dated me, of course. But you get some different perspectives. So they might get a trashy newspaper, and then read something more sort of current affairs and business oriented, the FT or something. and then the Daily Mail. So you've got a sort of a range, and I think that's probably, I at least justified that to myself, thinking give me a bit of a balanced overview of how.
Definitely.
What people are consuming and how they might be interpreting things. That's quite a project, though. I mean, that's like an hour a day.
But it's
just
very
to do
important, I think, to have that, because I was just reading this article I was telling you about, which I'll send it to you, on the Atlantic, that talks about this, the importance of how it's important to question our own beliefs, to absorb conflicting ideas, because it enriches us and it makes us more intelligent. I think confirmation bias, if we only look for the things that we want to listen to and to believe in, there's a dumbing down of society that happens. But
isn't that about time, though? Because if you have, we're all busy, and I can imagine you start early and you do a night shoot, and suddenly your capacity, or maybe your energy for reading loads is. I certainly feel that. If I have a long day, then typically I'll be happy to read a book and maybe a novel, maybe something that's not necessarily going to challenge me in quite the same
to
way
relax
as.
and whatnot.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm guilty of that. How do you? How do you create that time capacity?
I just read the headlines, really.
Right.
So I hop onto all different media outlets in the morning. So, from the BBC to the Guardian to New York Times to the Atlantic, or and CNN, because they all have relatively similar, but
I'm afraid I have to confess those are all the channels that I would.
Yeah,
refer
to.
to.
I just pop on there, Al Jazeera as well, and and CNHL News Asia in Singapore. Everyone basically talks about the same thing, but I look through the headlines just to get a gist of what's happening in the world, and anything that appears interesting, I dive into that, and then I might have a quick read, very quickly. So, or if I find a very interesting article, like this article that I'm reading now on the Atlantic, then I take my time to, I bookmark it, and then I maybe over breakfast or before going to bed or something like that, I might, take time to read it, to inform myself about.
I've got about 100 open tabs
exactly.
right now, so that's
Same here.
slightly guilty, but do send me that. I'd love to read it.
Yeah, I'll
I think
definitely send it to you, because it's such a good read.
Highly
It's about
topical.
social media and this whole era of stupidity that's arising because of confirmation bias. The little ecosystems that we're revolving around is not enriching our world perspectives, but actually limiting us, and it's saying that this is very dangerous for the institutions, because a lot of the great institutions of the century is built upon cultivating opposing views and producing questioning in a deep way, to tolerate opposing views, in order to cultivate,
without being too dogmatic about things too.
Exactly, to become too dogmatic.
I think that's one of the challenges. I'm coming toward the end of, somewhat late in the game, but of *Sapiens*, which is an amazing book. It sat on my shelf for several years. Anyway, I had a longer plane ride and managed to rip through that. It's incredible. But I think one of the sad messages is that this ability for human beings, we are predicated upon actually having to, traduce and and trump over people's views. So either just from thousands of years ago, we were having to conquer land, grab it, impose your view, or impose a system on top. So there is this ever repeating cycle of having to dominate, replace. And that doesn't really sit well with this idea of discourse, reasonableness, finding solutions. So I haven't finished *Sapiens* yet, so we don't know what the happy ending is, of course, but that's a tension, that's a challenge that I think we as human beings face, and maybe in some of the work that you do film-wise, is that a subject that you've been able to explore in terms of, reasonable person, unreasonable, and trying to bring them to the table, to
Definitely.
empathy,
I think
understanding.
definitely. I think in life is about relationships, interrelationships, and which makes makes it so wonderful. It's important to be able to meet people who are different to yourself as well, because they might make you feel uncomfortable, perhaps, but sometimes we have to have empathy and tolerance, because perhaps that person just heard the worst news of their life. Maybe they just lost their job, or maybe they in their own personal lives, they have an abusive relationship, or so they might be going through a lot of conflicting emotions. So they might not be their best self, so they might be hostile towards you, or they're not as polite, and so sometimes we do have to, I guess, to try and cultivate that sense of empathy, even if it makes us feel uncomfortable. And also being an actor, it's important to explore those mindsets. I think it's part of our craft to understand the psychology and what the inner workings of people, their emotions, and what drives them. Because there's so many layers. It's not just that person, the person that's there in that day. And our mindsets and our emotions are always continually in flux. From day to day, and we're always battling in some ways. We're trying to understand, I suppose, to find that happiness, that joie de vivre. I guess everyone's trying to always achieve that somehow. And
have you ever had a challenging moment on set, for example, or within a professional context, when you're like, I just can't do this anymore, I want to walk away, this person's not being respectful of me?
Yes, but I just hold my head high, and then you just get on with the job. I think it's normal, because in a high pressure situation or moment, if the director is very stressed out, or maybe time's of the essence, and there's a lot of conflicting energies on set. Some days it can be more stressful. Maybe the schedule doesn't go as planned. Someone doesn't show up because of COVID. So, and people start to worry, and so the energy shifts, and there's a lot of conflict starts to happen, seething beneath the surface. But, at that point, you just have to try and just carry on. You're there, and you have to be professional. And so you just get on with the job, pretty much.
Did you have COVID, by the way? You mentioned.
I did in December. It's funny, because I got it on Christmas Day, and on the 6th of January in Italy, it's called the Befana, which is the witch that comes. It's like the ancient pagan, I guess, form of Santa Claus, because she comes bearing gifts and sweets to good children and naughty children.
Does she have a stick for naughty children? Is that?
It's something like that, yeah. And so she took it away. So
so that was her gift towards you, was getting rid of COVID.
I think so. I joke, and say that, because I got I was at dinner, and I couldn't smell the food. I couldn't smell the flowers, so I was a bit worried, and I mentioned it the next day. I think I can't smell anything, so I went for a test, and lo and behold, I've got COVID, but I have no other symptoms. I didn't have headache, no flu symptoms, nothing. I was completely normal, but I just lost my sense of smell. And so I quarantined for 10 days. And I think the reason why my symptoms were so mild is probably because I was vaccinated. I was triple vaccinated, and that really helped in protecting me and reducing the symptoms. So I thought I just had a holiday at home. Really, I was just relaxing and
so your
reading.
COVID experience was
very positive.
Bearable.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
Thankfully.
And did that impact? I mean, the COVID limitations on set, they still apply, I guess, to some degree, don't they?
There's definitely protocols that everyone has to respect, because but it can be very frustrating, and I feel for the people who are organizing, who have to the scheduling, the assistant directors and production assistants, because it does become overwhelming. I think you might decide on a schedule one day, and it could just change, and so you have to reschedule everything and move things that you're meant to shoot.
Nightmare. Particularly for a big shoot like you're on with 100 or 200 people.
Complete nightmare.
Would you ever want to direct a film?
I would, actually. I wouldn't mind.
It must be remarkably difficult. I was just thinking.
But maybe not a big I wouldn't be interested in directing a huge commercial film. You know, I would love to be able to do a documentary or maybe a smaller film with a small crew.
Right.
Not a big
And what
one.
would your subject or the area that you'd like to take that in? Is there a smouldering passion about a particular subject that you wish to dive into?
Well, right now I'm actually working on, I've shot, on an Italian artist from Valle d'Aosta, Massimo Sacchetti, and I've shot a few things. It's interesting. It's like a short film, really. It's a short film, and it's a manifesto, an art manifesto, because he's very philosophical, and so I basically got him to read out his writings, and he has this very nice voice and very inquisitive mind, and he's written some beautiful things. He's very deep. He's one of those artists that thinks he's a contemporary artist, but a very deep thinker, and so I really liked what he wrote, and so I've shot, just with my DSLR camera, and some very beautiful images.
Right.
Actually, it turned out quite nice. In the mountains, you're in the Alps, and so I've had different scenarios and situations to match.
What's his art manifesto? That sounds interesting. So he's got an artist's view or a construct.
A personal view, of what
right.
art means to him, and so it's something that's very personal, but also very beautiful, and where he tries to answer great questions that pertains to his own world perspective. On
And what sort of artist is he?
life
What's his discipline?
He's a multidisciplinary artist, so he works not only with paint but also with kind of etching, but using pen, a biro pen, which is a large part of his works, and I did like a stop motion thing. There's one scene with his drawings, his etchings.
And how old is he approximately?
He's 46, I believe,
Okay, so
this year now.
We can call him young.
Yeah. He's. I'll send you his Instagram profile. He's very nice, and he does sculptures as well. But he's very struck by the whole natural landscape, particularly the mountains in Valle d'Aosta, because it's very imposing. Actually, it's like it's amazing. It's so powerful, and it engulfs the whole valley. And and I think and all his work is really about that. I think relationship to nature and his relationship to the mountains.
I mean, nature. You've, as I can tell, quite concerned about how we treat nature and how we treat the world and all the subjects. Which again,
We all are.
Yeah.
Really. We're at that point, the precipice. I mean, I don't know. I mean, time's running out, isn't it? We only have a decade. 2050 is really like the 2030. They said, a tipping point.
Yeah, seems to be. And so, what do you do personally to mitigate your carbon footprint? I mean, you're vegan. Plant-based, correction.
I can't call myself vegan because I still eat honey very rarely. But so I guess I can't technically call myself vegan.
So
but
you're 95% vegan.
I guess, yeah, I suppose so. And
But plant-based, I think, is a good.
Plant-based, yeah, I'm definitely plant-based.
Justifiably, yeah.
So, and I've been vegetarian for 20 years already. So and I don't, I walk everywhere. I go on bike. I recycle. If I do have plastic, packaging, I try to wash it clean because they can't recycle, plastics that's dirty. So I try and do that. I do recycling definitely. Only thing is hot water and heat. I do need hot water. Growing up in Asia, in the tropics, I do suffer the cold quite easily. So for me, I need to have my warm shower. So not a hot shower. So I do try and keep it short and quick. So I don't spend 10 minutes.
You don't wallow.
No, I don't. I try and just be quick, about it so that I don't waste too much hot water. But the only thing is that I travel for work, so I do take the plane, and I know that flying is the worst way to offset your carbon.
You could take a train, perhaps, but that's maybe a bit harder between. To Australia, that would be a big challenge, wouldn't it?
I think it would be a lot of fun actually to do a trip like that. Maybe I'd have to bring a film crew with me, and we can do a big trip, from Europe to
absolutely.
And document
My great
the whole
grandfather,
experience.
great grandfather was an explorer, and he went from northern Sweden to Australia.
What?
And so
On boat? Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were great sailors in Sweden.
Yeah.
Swedish.
So the story goes, I'm not trying to talk about that, but it's on point, that he found a wife sort of halfway through his journey. He sent her back to northern Sweden. I think he got down to the south of France at that point. And so she then went scuttling back up to Sweden. It couldn't be a very easy place to go to in the...
cold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then he ended up going all the way around the Pacific islands and down to Australia. And
Incredible.
But it was...
He made it all the way to Australia.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
What an adventure.
I'm pretty sure he's away for a year or maybe even 2 years. Hazy memories from my grandfather, obviously, reminiscing about these things. But I was going to mention, actually, in terms of the hot and cold water, that's understandable. I tried a couple of weeks. I said to you yesterday, I tried a couple of weeks of cold showers only, and it was...
But you do it, I can't.
Yeah, in winter. It's invigorating, but... as you can see, the effects
It's
have
good
been...
for the skin.
Yeah. No wrinkles whatsoever. But yeah, that I think, unfortunately, we are permitted to have a few indulgences, but... So you go a long way to mitigating and cutting out wherever you can without being too flagellistic about it.
I think, the being going plant-based is one of the biggest things, I think.
Yeah.
Easiest way for most people, I think, to reduce their carbon footprint just by going plant-based.
And how many of your colleagues would you find that within the film and the acting community, how many people are now plant-based? Because they typically are quite conscious people and aware of these sort of issues.
They're definitely more sensitive to that, and and they're more conducive to the idea. But whether they're completely or totally plant-based, vegan, not that many. I mean, take myself for example. I can't call myself vegan because I still I eat honey, so I'm not 100% vegan, even if I don't take any dairy or meat or fish or anything like that. But a lot of people, definitely you find them, they're more sensitive to the idea, and they tend to practice it a lot more. And you tend to find a lot of people who are vegetarian, who make, they try not to eat meat as often, and they try to make these choices in their daily lives.
How's it in Italy being vegan? Because of course Italian cuisine is
cheese
absolutely
dominates the whole thing. Well, no, I know a few people who are vegan.
And you can navigate your way around.
Oh, very easy, because in Italy, a large part of the cuisine there is vegetarian. You can easily find vegetarian dishes, and Italians love to cook, at home. In fact, I love to cook, and we tend to have parties, at home rather than going out to a restaurant, because everyone can cook so well. So
do you feel when you're doing a dinner party for your Italian friends, it must be quite a stressful situation to start with, because the expectations and the benchmark's pretty high.
They're very picky, it's true.
Right. What's your pièce de résistance? When you want to do your fail-proof thing?
Very simple. I don't try and impress so much. I think sometimes just being simple and wholesome it's good enough. I don't try to. Well, it depends. If I want to do something special, then I might go the whole 9 yards and spend the whole day doing that.
So, what's your best dish? What's the one that you think is simple, deliverable, and hits the sweet spot?
Probably laksa, which is a Singaporean dish. Malaysian Singaporean. I didn't say Singaporean, did I? I mean Southeast Asian, Malaysian Singaporean, kind of a spicy coconut soup with noodles in it. But I do a vegetarian version with tofu and pumpkin, stewed pumpkins, and it's quite good. And it's easy to whip up. And so
sounds good.
That's pretty.
Next time you come here, I was going to say.
And pastas, I guess I make a good pesto, homemade vegan pesto. Because I don't eat Parmigiano anymore, Parmesan cheese. yeah, so that's I've learned that when you boil the pasta, you have to put some broad beans inside. Yeah, that's
Okay.
from because it's a dish originally from Genova, and that's how they do it there.
And what does the broad bean do? What's the purpose of that? Just
I don't know really. I guess just to
little
add a
sort
bit
of
of flavor.
flavour to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
a little bit of flavor, perhaps. And yeah, it does work.
So what are you looking most forward to? So you're returning to Rome in a few hours. What's the bit that you're most excited about returning? Because I guess you'll miss Budapest.
Yes,
You've enjoyed it. It's been
definitely. This has been home for the
intense.
past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I guess Rome. I would look forward definitely to the coffees.
Okay.
At the bars, even though I don't drink it that often, but I would definitely go for a nice cappuccino in the morning, maybe tomorrow morning. I love walking on the Tevere, which is the river. I go for my jogs, and it's just so beautiful. It's one of those cities that just look like a painting, an 18th century painting. When the sun sets and you have this orange glow over the cupola, and I'm just close by St. Peter's, so and that's quite impressive as well, architecturally speaking. And
So how long? Because you've been living in Rome now, what, 15 years or so?
yeah, more or less.
And it hasn't lost its allure, obviously.
In that respect, no, I think it's a very charming city. It's a city with a lot of character, definitely a lot of history, and there's so many levels, stratifications of memory that just every time you dig, there's something, they find something that's linked to the past, and you think about how that one place has influenced so much of world history and has made such a huge impact, not only 2,000 years ago, but there were a lot of art movements that swept through Italy, from the Renaissance, even up to the 60s with La Dolce Vita, with the film industry. And so they always seem to have these periods of ups, and then, they kind of just fade away into the background. But it tends to come in swaths, I don't know, in moments,
So the Dolce Vita for you has its allure. Coffees and the art scene is interesting. So,
Right.
I mean, maybe just to wrap up on that, perhaps. But from a musical perspective and from an visual arts perspective, there's some interesting things going on there.
I think it's very active. Definitely, you have to look for these events. It's culturally very rich. You open up the events page. You hop online on Eventbrite, and there's so many things happening. You can go to the Auditorium Santa Cecilia. You have all the greatest musicians coming through. Art festivals. That's one of the most beautiful things I think about Italy. Is in the summer they have amazing art festivals, music festivals that pop up. And they have these beautiful locations where they hold them in, like in Villa Adriano, up in Villa Borghese, or around Rome, in Pompeii, and you find all these.
So which ones will you be doing this summer? Have you got any go-to festivals that would be?
For sure, I think Villa Adriano. They have a film festival there that I'd like to go to.
Where's that? Where's Villa Adriano?
It's just outside, I think, close to Tivoli.
Okay.
To Tivoli, so I might do that, and Villa Cirimontana. I don't know if they're going to do the jazz festival again this year. At the Auditorium, they have dance festival that I'm curious about as well. So there's a lot. They bring a lot. From Europe. A lot of artists do come through, and it's definitely thriving. But you have to look, you have to search it out. They have a lot of institutes as well, so like the Swiss Institute, or the Academy, Swiss Academy. You've got the Romanian academies. You have, I have a cultural association as well in Italy, where I've organized some art exhibitions and concerts as well.
And what's your association called? Your cultures?
Culture del Mondo, Cultures of the World. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, send me that link, and actually, what I'd be very grateful for, if you wouldn't mind, is send me a little schedule of the kind of the go-to festivals, because
Yes, okay.
as I make my own summer plans,
Yes, yeah,
this could
definitely.
be
We can definitely catch
some
up in Rome. Yeah,
Exactly.
That's a great
I'll
idea.
have to bring Ray along with us and
Yes.
capture some experience. Well, thank you very much,
Thank
Jacelyn,
you.
for coming
Thank you so
and
much, Peter, for inviting
sharing your
me.
thoughts and reflections just before you zoom from Budapest back to Rome. Thank you.
2 o'clock flight, 4 o'clock flight. Yeah. Thank you.
Let's do it. Thank you, Ray.